Hello again, thanks for joining. So the whole thing with speaker gate and Scale's buck jumpers has got me thinking about something, and I'm going to pose the question here and let's have a chat about it. Have model railway locomotives just got too complicated now? And I'm going to use an analogy about cars, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But for now, let's have a think about where we're at with this. I'm an scale modeler, and truth be told, it's a very long time since I've bought a brand new model simply because I just can't afford it. They're too expensive and I just don't have the money. And if you watch this channel, you know I usually buy second-hand stuff, and my favourite brand is Fleischmann from when they used to do scale. They only do N scale now. And those Fleischmann locomotives I get usually are pretty robust. They can take a few knocks, and they have some features on them, normally just lighting, maybe directional, and of course a motor, and it's usually 3-pole, sometimes 5-pole, but they're certainly not digital and they don't have speakers or anything like that. I'm not the most delicate of person and I'm not great with my hands, and you'll have seen me trying to solder things up, and it can sometimes go completely wrong and I end up breaking a locomotive, and that's old stuff which is quite simple to work on. I can't imagine the mess I'd get into if I tried to sort out some circuit board on a modern locomotive like this little tank engine from Scale. I'd actually be quite scared to open it up, and I probably just wouldn't and get the manufacturer to sort it out if I needed to do something to it, like maybe install a speaker or DCC chip or something like that. We're seeing models now with such a level of detail and small tiny parts that sometimes you see them coming from the manufacturer and they have little faults and they maybe don't run straight out the box, or a piece just isn't quite right and the part then becomes available from the manufacturer. Again, I'm thinking of Scale Deltic here and the issues it had with the lighting. My chosen scale is scale obviously, and in this scale you can get all sorts of stuff on your locomotives these days. Not only a 5-pole motor, you can get obviously a flywheel on it, you get all-wheel pickup, all-wheel drive, directional lighting, you get additional lighting like maybe cab lighting, or in steam locomotives a firebox flicker or something like that. You get sound with many different features on that. You can also get smoke, and that's not just only for steam locomotives, you can also get it on diesels. You get operating pantographs, you get automatic couplers on some. Markland even have a locomotive that's got an animated driver that faces the direction of travel now. I mean, animatronics in a model train now? The amount of technology in a small model about the size of a banana is just quite incredible these days. But is it getting too much? And if you go down the scales, in TT scale you can get models which have got sound and directional lights as well, and that also extends into N scale, and even down at Z scale you get models with LED directional lights as well. It's just incredible the amount of technology they're packing into such a small space. But that does have consequences. For example, now it's even getting difficult just to get the body off the chassis in order to do basic maintenance. I'm a big fan of the models back in the day that used to have a screw on the top of the dome. You unscrewed that and you just lifted the entire body off your locomotive and you were done. And then you had access to everything you needed to. And yet I can still mess that up. So I've talked about an analogy with cars. Still to this day, the most favourite car I've ever owned is this, a 205 GTI. And I actually had more than one of these in my time. They were fantastic cars. They had good performance, great looks at the time, plus they were absolutely super easy to work on. I could fix or modify this car with nothing more than a Halford socket set and a hammer. And that was pretty much it. And with basic tools like this, and a little bit of luck, I actually managed to work on engines and everything. The last car I tinkered around with, I actually did most of the modification using a computer, and it definitely spelt a difference where electronics started to become much more complicated, and you needed specialist tools as well. And we're seeing that in the model railway world now, where you've got specialist tools to do things like pull DCC chips out of the locomotive. And I'm wondering, you probably wouldn't work on your own car now, especially if it's electric. It's probably quite dangerous as well. You could actually get killed by the electric shock off one of these car batteries. So invariably you don't see driveway mechanics anymore on these type of new cars, and you just send them to the specialist to get repaired or modified. And channels like Matt Armstrong's channel just shows how complicated. He's very skilled at repairing crash damaged cars, and yet he still gets stumped with some of these cars where the electronics have just got so complicated. When things like the headlights stopped working on my old 205, you could just get onto eBay and buy a new bulb for like 50p and fit it yourself, and then you had lights again. Nowadays, if your lights stop working on your brand new electric car, it's usually that you'll need an entire new light unit at a cost of a few £100, and then it'll need to be programmed to the car. So it sounds like a specialist dealer job. And is that the way model trains are going now? That they're going to get so complicated you can't do the modifications at home, or even just basic maintenance, and that you have to send them to a specialist or back to the manufacturer to get that done. They're absolutely packed with delicate electronics, and you could easily break these now. But where are we going to go with all this? I suspect we're probably going to see AI involved in model railways at some point. I did make a comedy video about this before where I called it the Total Intelligent Train System. I just had a laugh about the AI running your trains, and you could go off and go out into the countryside and not worry about running model trains anymore. But I do actually think AI is probably going to become part of the model railway world quite soon, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if someone is working on it right at this moment. And my money's on Markland for coming out first with this, or you never know, maybe Gagemaster. But that's going to add a whole level of complexity to the models even over what we've got now, and it actually might have some comedy moments, you never know. But what do you think about this? Are model railway locomotives just getting too complicated now, and are we heading down the route where you can't modify or even service your models without having to send them back to the manufacturer or some specialist? They certainly frighten me. I'm much happier on DC and just messing around with these old locomotives with their basic feature set. It does me fine, but I can understand why somebody would want to have all the fancy gadgets. And if that's your thing, you're into the technical digital side of the hobby, then fair play to you. I'm really in admiration of what can be done, and when I've gone to shows and seen some of these locomotives in action, it really does look very impressive, and also the sound is actually really cool too. But it's a learning curve I don't really want to go along. I don't want to run model trains off my mobile phone. I prefer the analog feel of an old H&M controller. But that's just me. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. It'd be great to have a discussion about this and get your thoughts as well. And thanks for watching this video. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.
Model train, model worlds, choo choo, model trains, tiny train, in tiny worlds, choo choo, model trains, tiny train.